anthrax, state-of-the-art, genetic manipulation, and perhaps most alarming is Pesechnik said they had the ability to put bubonic plague on onto an ICBM, and this was disturbing news. And Pesechnik dies while the anthrax attacks are happening, the result of a stroke. He was another man who knew perhaps too much because he knew the Soviet secrets. And then when he came to the West, he was set up in a private firm by Kelly in the privatized biodefense sector, continuing his researches now under the guise of defense. And he also had contracts with the United States Navy. So Pesechnik knew top secret stuff for the U.S., the U.K., and the Soviets. And it's just a dangerous business. You either kill yourself, you're murdered, or you have a stroke, all with quote marks around them.
Interesting profession for college kids, huh?
Hey, it's tough to get a job these days. Who knows?
So what are the theories here, the speculative theories, of course, on why they're dying? I would think murder. I think both of you would think murder in most cases as well. Why? Why eliminate them?
Well, I think, George, an interesting case is one more scientist that we looked at was Frank Olson, and perhaps he was the first, 1953. This was a U.S. Army scientist working at the same place where Bruce Ivins was working with anthrax, funnily enough. But he was working with a secret division at Fort Detrick called Special Operations. It was actually affiliated with the CIA and headed by a guy by the name of Sidney Gottlieb, who was the mastermind of the MK Ultra program. Anyway, Frank Olson, it turns out, was sent around the world and to monitor certain experiments that were going on with some of our U.S. partners. And he was at Porton Down, funnily enough, at the time of these human experiments. And Frank Olson returned from his European trip in 1953 where he'd visited Porton Down. He'd visited a place in Germany where he witnessed human experiments and came back and told his family, he was really depressed and said, I've really made a bad mistake here. I want to get out of this. And Frank Olson basically tendered his resignation, said, I'm getting out. And the folks he worked with down at Fort Detrick and Special Operations said, Frank Olson, you're just a little depressed. Let's go to New York. We've got a good doctor for you to see.
Yeah.
And basically Frank Olson came down to New York City and was in a hotel in 50 by Penn Station. And at 2 a.m. fell 13 floors to his death from his hotel window. His family was told it was an accident, something happened, never fully explained. But his son, by the name of Eric Olson, who was only 9 years old at the time, basically never bought the cover story. Many years later, the government said they slipped him LSD in this experiment.
Oh, he was the one. Okay.
That's the guy with the LSD. And they gave the family some money. This was President Ford in 1976 and apologized for this thing. But the son believed that even that was a cover story, that there was more to it.
There might have been, yeah.
And so what he did was that he exhumed his father's body in 1994, and he got the top forensic pathologist in the country to examine it. And he found evidence that Frank Olson had actually been hit in the head and murdered before being thrown out the window.
Unbelievable.
Now, it comes back to your question, George, why? Now, Eric Olson, we interview him for the book and the film, and he's got a really good point. When you've got guys who are involved in this most secret of secret stuff, this most diplomatically explosive stuff, and they come to a point and they say, we want out. We shouldn't be doing this thing. I've crossed the line. What do you do with these guys?
Yeah. First of all, you're afraid they're going to rat on you, right?
Well, that's it, right? You can't put them on trial. You can't send them to Siberia, right? Where, we can't do that in this country. But what do you do? And that's a really, interesting question. And certainly if we look at the case of David Kelly, one of the things we do know was that he was thinking about writing a book. And it approached publishers and writers, and we talked to a few of those folks. We also know that a few years before his death, he converted to the Baha'i faith, which is a religion that's it's a world culture religion. It embraces all religions, all peoples, and its basic tenet is world peace and understanding among human beings. And David Kelly converted to the Baha'i faith. And by the way, Baha'is are not allowed to commit suicide. And apparently he got into this Baha'i stuff, and perhaps David Kelly was a man who had a change of heart, who said, this is not good.
And maybe it was the change of heart that got him killed.
We don't know, and we certainly know that he was privy to all the secrets. He knew everything about this dirty germ war world, and perhaps these guys like Frank Olson sign up believing they're doing the right thing, that they're on the good side, and it's maybe once they get into it a little deeply that they realize that, well, then maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
Well, what's amazing, Bob and Eric, is that it's almost as if these people can get away with murder. They probably figure it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to say anything. Nobody's going to do anything. It may end up in a book, but it won't be with my name. So what? And they go off and they kill these people. And they're gone. I have long suspected that these people also were working on a project that is so big, in tandem, perhaps with each other. There might be a link. Have you been able to find a link between these dead microbiologists where they all come to one point?
On the Internet, one reads many things, and one tries to, as I say, separate the wheat from the chaff. And we came across a very interesting article by a great British investigative writer named Gordon Thomas. He's just published a big book on British intelligence. That's a big bestseller in Britain. We were just over there, and it's in all the bookshop windows. Gordon is in our film. We interviewed him for the book. He wrote an article that was published in a British paper, which indicated that a couple of these guys were working on a project that involved DNA level understanding, and basichages work that might have involved phages. Phages are a very interesting piece of business. Peseshnik was a phage expert. Phage is a way to fight infections. We use antibiotics in the West, and the phage industry was destroyed by the antibiotic industry. But in the former Soviet Union, Soviet scientists kept the phage operation alive, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, these guys began opening themselves to the West. Phage therapy is what Peseshnik had a contract with the U.S. Navy for. And some of these people, they say, are working on that. In other words, anthrax antidotes that were big-ticket items.
Interesting. And I wonder if they're setting us up for something even bigger. What do you think?
It's quite possible. I mean, even a sober observer looks at what's happening with alarm. The key thing that we've learned is that there is no difference between biodefense and biooffense. Biooffense is outlawed by international treaty, which the U.S. and the Soviet Union has signed. But biodefense is allowable. But essentially, the R&D that you need for this is interchangeable. One of the things, let me give you an example.
All right, let's take that example, Bob and Eric, when we come right back on Coast to Coast AM. And next hour, of course, we'll take phone calls. With our special guest, Bob Cohen, Eric Nadler, their work, Dead Silence. Next hour, we'll take phone calls. We'll continue with the story when we come back. Okay, Bob and Eric, let's pick up the story again where we were as we were talking about these microbiologists who seem to have been murdered or they die under very mysterious circumstances all around this planet. Go ahead, Bob.
It's Eric. I just want to finish that thing on what they're doing in the labs these days is in order to make vaccines and biodefense work, which is allowed, they are absolutely mixing in new concoctions germs. The thinking goes like this. They actually do sit around and say, what if the terrorists mixed